I think what I would like to tell people who are listening is basically that, failure is a part of the journey, right? It doesn't define who you are, right? If you try something out and you fail at it, at least you tried, right? So you learned from it.
This is the Real Talk University podcast, where your hosts, Andre and Christian, explore success stories outside of the classroom.
Christian, I'm with Andre. We're the Real Talk University podcast. Basically, we look to interview high-level entrepreneurs and people that have monetized their passions, like what you've done with your Instagram and pages and such. And we just ask a series of questions to get to know you better and introduce you to our audience. So,
Sure.
you ready to go?
Yeah, I'm ready to go. And thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. All right, so you're about to pilot this question. We normally open up with a little intro, but we're going to do something different here. So we're going to ask you, tell us 2 truths and a lie, and we'll try to guess which one is the lie.
2 truths and a lie. Oh, wow. Let's see. Me and Elon Musk are gym buddies. We work out together often. Okay, that's 1. 2, I slept in my car for about 1.5 years at one point in my life. And 3, let's see. What's a good one? You have to think of good ones, man. Okay, because it has to be like really believable or unbelievable, right? Like it can't be like one or the other. I was mentored by Mark Cuban for a little over a year and a half.
Shit.
I would say you never slept in your car.
I'm gonna go with the last one. You weren't mentored by Cuban.
So you guys think those are the lies?
Yeah.
It's actually me working out with Elon Musk. I actually met him already, and he's one of my mentors. We text often, but I've never gotten a chance to work out with him.
Okay, yeah, we're kind of hoping that'd be true. That was cool.
Yeah, I figured from your Instagram posts with him and stuff, like there was a chance.
Yeah, because you guys already saw that, so I was trying to trick you guys.
Yeah,
you saw the post of me and Elon, so I was trying to trick you guys there.
That's good.
Yeah, so I actually did sleep in my car for about 1.5 years. I was homeless.
Wow.
Life. I hit rock bottom. And, those are the times that sort of build you to who you are today, right? You go through these adversities, and, you just have to get through them, man. And I think that if I wouldn't have gone through that experience, I wouldn't appreciate the little things that I do now. Like one thing that I do every morning is, when I meditate, I do a gratitude meditation. I think about the littlest things. And some people think I'm like, when I talk to people about this, they're like, wow, like you actually are grateful for having clean water, like just clean drinking water. People don't understand that you can easily, if you don't have like bottles of water in your refrigerator or wherever, you can easily just go to your sink, open up the faucet and drink water, and it's pretty clean for the most part. If you've been to some of these third world countries that I've been to, man, like you would see kids drinking out of dirty ponds. And so when that sits in, and you wake up every day, it's the little things that you got to think about that you're grateful for. Like, everything from water to food to whether, even if you're sleeping on a mattress on the floor, at least you have a roof over your head, because you don't know the third world countries and how a lot of people out there, even here now, like, right, people being homeless and whatnot. So yeah, so that was actually a true story. I was actually homeless at one point in my life.
Yeah, so we do know a little bit about your background. Some of the questions we'll be asking will kind of go about what we know, and then we'll unveil a lot of your story that you have to share. But yeah, I've been doing some of those gratitude exercises when I wake up in the morning, some of the things that Tony Robbins teaches, and it definitely like helps you to just realize like how lucky we are to be here speaking to each other today.
Right, exactly. And I mean, at that point, once you realize, once you inject those thoughts in your mind, as you wait, like the minute you wake up, the second you wake up, I do my gratitude meditation. It just sets the entire day for success, because everything from that point on is just amazing. It's just, you're grateful for it. It's just all around the universe working in your favor, right? So that's why I do it. But yeah, thanks for having me on, guys. Appreciate it.
Sure. So like we said, we researched you a little bit, and from my understanding, you were kicked out of your house at 16. So take us through what that was like.
Yeah, so I was always like I would say, I would always be a trouble kid. Like I was always getting in trouble at school. I never felt like I fit in at school. When I was 12 to I was 14, I lived out of the country. My brother and I, my parents moved us to Guatemala so that we can go and study Spanish for 2 years. We're originally from Guatemala, but we didn't know how to read and write Spanish. And so we moved out there, then we came back. So then we were placed in a completely different school. I had no friends. We came back after 2 years of being gone. We didn't know anyone in the school. So coming in back into school, I lost all my friends and just had to rebuild from the ground up. And I just never felt like I really fit in, even after I did make friends. I was bullied as soon as I came into that school. I got into a couple of fights because I was bullied, and I tried to defend myself. And just kind of going through that process of like really trying to find myself as a 14-year-old kid and trying to fit in with the crowd. I just never really liked school, and it just gave me a really bad experience during that time. And so from the age of 14 to 16, I was really rebellious. I didn't want to go to school, never really did my homework, always got in trouble. And so but I started hanging out with a different group of people with my older brother who were more, they were kind of like the party goers in his high school. But at the same time, there was like this entrepreneurial aspect of what they were doing, because they were more organized in the sense that they were putting parties together. They were charging an entrance to the door. They were printing flyers. They were marketing these parties throughout different various schools. And so I started learning that whole promoter type industry in that at an early age. And I got really intrigued by it because I saw these high school kids that were throwing these parties that had as many as 2,000 kids showing up, and they were charging like $10 an entrance fee. So I was like, in my head, I was doing the numbers, and I was like, man, these guys are making money, right? And my brother was also making money. So, being one of the guys that helped promote these parties, and so he got me involved with it. And I got really intrigued by just the idea that you can, at that young age, you can build something. And so I started looking to getting jobs. And I remember my brother got me into this job where we would literally go door knocking at different neighborhoods, and we would sell toys. And so I became really good at it. I became really good at selling toys. And we would sell toys for $5 basically. And then our commission on that was $1.50, $1.75, depending on how many toys we could make, up to $2. It was a tier structured commission. And I became so good at it. My brother became so good at selling that, our manager, who was like the owner of the company, was like, hey, would you want to start training other kids to do what you do? And I'll give you a commission off of what they're doing. And I was like, yeah. So I kind of expanded my mind. I was like, if I could have a little army of people, right, like working under me, and all I have to do is train them. And so that's when I really learned the aspects of management, and also, really how businesses are structured, right? And like how businesses are structured from the top to bottom or bottom to top. And so I just started doing that. My brother and I became so good at it that eventually we had our own van with like 20 kids that we were responsible for. We would go all over the city, different cities. We would train kids. I remember like being 15 and doing that. I would get upset because some kids would be like very embarrassed by the idea of walking up to a door. We would basically print out these sheets, and we'd be like, opportunity to make money after school, part-time, make an extra $100 a week or $200 a week. People would call you, and then we would go and interview them. Basically, we talk to their parents, talk them into to doing this with us. But I remember kids being like, no, I don't. Like, they would come and they would want to make money, but once they would get into the van, something would happen in that ride that when we would show up and it was time to go and sell, they would freeze, and like 8 or 9 out of 10 would not want to get off the van.
Yep. Wow.
And they would just be like, take me back. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. So my responsibility was to like break through that, right? Help them break through that. Like, what's going on? Like, why are you, what if I run into someone I know? And so at that age, I was already helping kids like break through that mindset of like, there's nothing to be embarrassed of. Like, you're here working, you're making money. Like how embarrassing is it going to be for you to show up to your school next week with $100 or $200 in your pocket, right? Now you can go out, buy new clothes. You can buy whatever you want. You can give some money to your mom. Like, like I was trying to even sell them on the idea. I was selling them the dream, right? And so I learned a lot through that process. But going back to answering your questions, like I was more focused on wanting to work and make money because I had already gotten a little bit of taste of what it was like to make money at a young age. And I really enjoy that. And that was where I really felt like I fit in. I fit in with all with the kids that were little, that were hustling, that wanted to make money, that, wanted to work. And my father and I never really had a relationship growing up. He was never really there for us. So he never really understood where I was coming from. And so I got a job at the age of 15 at McDonald's after doing that working that after school job. Because I don't know why I wanted to work at McDonald's. So it was like always like a dream of mine to like actually have like a real job, and at the time. And so I got a job at McDonald's, and my mom was like, don't tell your dad anything because he's going to get upset. So make sure that you're working on times where he's not here, he's working. And so, eventually all lies come to surface. And I ended up missing a day of work. They called in and he answered the phone and they were like, hey, but here's how crazy it was. So at the age of 15 back then, I couldn't get a job, right? It was like 14 or 15. I couldn't get a job. So I ended up borrowing my brother's school ID and applied under his name because he was older than I. So he actually said, fine, I'll let you get a job under my name, but like, you can't tell anyone, right? And so when I was at work, his name's Louis. When I was at work, my manager was always like, how come you never pay attention when I call your name? You have a hearing problem? And I was like, no, I just don't hear you call. And then I figured, I was like, oh, they're calling me Louis. No wonder every time they're like, Louis, I would never pay attention. So I finally convinced them that at home I was called Eric. So they started calling me Eric at work.
Wow.
So, so I was pretty cool. I always kind of like found a way to make it work. But because I was always just focused on trying to work and I was doing bad in school, my dad sort of gave me an ultimatum and he was like really upset and said, you know what, you need to quit your job and you have to focus on school. And he was just really all about go to school, get a good job, go to college, get an education. You need to be responsible. We didn't bring you to this country to give you a better opportunity for you to just, not finish school and not go to college. So they were always just really about that. And him and I never got along. So it came to a point then where I ended up getting another job and, he just got really upset about that. And, him and my mom were always getting into it because of it. My mom would always stand up for us and back us up. And, it was just one of those things where he just kind of packed my bags and said like, hey, if you want to live by your rules, you got to get the hell out of here. And so I took off and never went back.
Wow, that's crazy. And the reason we started this podcast is like exactly what you said there at the end is how like everyone is just trying to push for a good degree, get good grades, and then get a good job. But we just want to like show people that there's so much more out there. And then like obviously your story just fits that mold so perfectly. And there's also a lot of things you said there, especially with like surrounding yourself with the right people. Like before you weren't surrounded with the entrepreneurial spirit. And like, as soon as you kind of surrounded yourself with that, it changed your mindset and changed the way you did things. So I thought that was really cool. And one of my questions was, I just wanted to know like how your experience from selling door to door with the toys and with insurance later on kind of helped you to do what you're doing now.
Yeah. So, I was going to tell you guys, like, touching back on what you said, like I'm very strong on power by association. Like, and I was taught that very early on in life. I remember, coming in from middle school to high school, the first day of high school, the dean of the school called me to his office basically. And he said to me, he's like, listen, you have a really bad reputation. Like you have a really bad reputation for getting into fights. If you get into one fight at my school, you're completely expelled from the entire county of LA, the LA district, right?
Wow.
And he just kind of sat me down and I explained to him what it was. I was like, look, I don't like getting into fights. Like, obviously I want to get along with people. It's just, I was bullied and I'm not the kind of person that just sits there and takes, shit from someone. Yep. And so I defended myself. And so, but he told me something that day that I'll never forget. He said, look, man, in life, he goes, when you come to my school, just look at the people that you're hanging out with, right? Just pay attention. He said, look, and then he's like, if you notice, like all the skaters hang out with skaters, right? All the potheads hang out with potheads. All the jocks hang out with jocks. They all play sports, right? All the party goers hang out with the party goers. So, and then all the Gothic kids hang out with the Gothic crowd, right?
Yeah.
So look at the 5 closest people to you. Look at the people around you. Those are the people that you're going to be like, right? And who are those people that you're hanging out with, right? I understand that you're bullied. I understand that you went through this bad experience, but make a better choice of who you choose to hang out with. And so that first day, I chose to hang out with my older brother. My older brother was always the straightest student, graduated with honors. He ended up, after graduating high school, he ended up, leaving to the Marines, got his degrees. He's getting his PhD now. So he's always sort of been like that straight kid who's always been really good. And we both grew up in the same environment. So, I have no excuses as to why I was always like kind of a trouble kid, but I paid attention to that. And going back to what you said right now, like associating myself, even now, like I choose very carefully who I want to hang out with and who I spend my time with, because that's very important to that. And now, don't get me wrong. I think that school is very needed for specific careers. I think that there's careers where you absolutely need to go to school. Like if you want to be a doctor, if you want to be a lawyer, obviously you just can't learn that. You can't take a course online to learn that. But I think that, kids nowadays should really take a step back and focus more on finding out more about themselves. What makes you happy? What are your strengths, right? Are you intrigued by school? Are you really interested? Like, do you enjoy going to school, or are you just doing it because someone else is telling you to do it, right? If you're doing it because someone else is telling you to do it, then that's the wrong way to think about it. But if you do it because you actually enjoy it and you're good at it and you feel good about it when you're with her, you like the environment, you like everything about it, and you feel like you're going to be a great lawyer, you're going to be a great whatever you're going to end up in. And then some people go to school for business. I also think that's a waste of time. I think that if you're a business major in school, that might be a waste of time, because the time that you put into college, the time that you put into university, all that time that you put in, all that be using to actually learning a lot more about the actual business world. And there's a lot of popular memes that go around about, when you finish school and you actually go to an interview and they ask you like, what kind of experience do you have? And you're like, none, right? You're like, I have no experience in the real world. And they're like, oh, well, we're looking for someone with a minimum 2 years experience, and you just graduated school thinking you have this degree, you're going to get a job. I remember working at different jobs when I was kind of like figuring things out, 17, 18 years old at the mall. And I was working there at the mall with people that had like 4-year degrees or like even an MBA, like at one point. Like, to me, that was kind of mind blowing. And I was just like, how is that you're selling shoes at the mall with this like high school dropout, but you went to school? And it was just like, it's hard to get a job, And so, yeah, but please refresh me on the last question that you said.
Yeah. I was just wondering how selling door to door helped you to do what you're doing now.
I think it helped. I think the biggest takeaway from it was getting rid of rejection, the fear of rejection. I think that was I learned that really early on in that job. I learned that it was that there was nothing to it really. Like, sales, you're gonna hear a lot of no's, not just in sales, but in life, period. You're gonna get a lot of no's. And I posted something on my Instagram not too long ago where I said, I'm like toasting at this under the sea restaurant in the Maldives. And I posted that and I said, just remember that the guy in this picture was once rejected by 99% of the people in business. And that's true, because you're going to hear no's a lot of times, right? But that doesn't mean that shouldn't reflect on who you are as a person, or doesn't reflect, really about you, where you're headed in life. You shouldn't let it affect. So that's what I learned really early on, is getting rid of the fear of rejection, right? To me, hearing a no is like, great. That's like, it just means we're not connecting, right? Like either I'm not doing a good enough job of explaining what I'm offering, or the value that I'm offering is just not a good fit for you, right? I don't take that. I don't take that personal, right? When somebody tells me no, I don't sit back and I don't allow that to impact or change my emotion on how I feel from that person saying no. It's sort of like, no, great, thank you so much for your time, next, right? Because you're gonna hear a yes, right? And so you learn from those no's to get better. You optimize your pitch, right? And for me, that's what I learned. It's like optimizing my pitch. Like, I still remember the pitch. It was the company was built as this after school program that helped kids stay away from trouble, gangs, and drugs, right? So, initially, like, we had a pitch that was like, hi, my name's Eric. I'm from Tomorrow's Future. We're a company that helps kids like myself stay away from. Initially, I would just be like, pitch the company and just talk about it and how, like, they help kids stay away from drugs and gangs and, like, whatever. But then I started sort of using me as an example of, like, how trouble as a kid I was and how this has helped me so much and by buying a toy. So I started putting myself as an example and showing that emotion on the fact that you're not, by buying this toy for $5, you're not just buying this toy. You're helping me. You're giving me, potential in the future of. And so when you talk like that, and you really connect with some parents, like, especially parents that are opening the door, like, who the hell is this, like, 14, 15-year-old kid trying to sell me a toy? Yeah. And why do I need this toy? So when I get rid of you don't need the toy. That's not the point of this. The point of this is, like, you're helping kids like myself, right? I could be out there, I could be out there doing drugs. I could be out there, not doing good or just whatever, like trying to get them to relate to my story. And that's when I started seeing results, right? So getting getting rid of the fear of rejection was, like, the biggest takeaway from that experience early on. And I think that a lot of people have that fear, that doubt inside.
Yep. So I'm going to branch off on that and ask you, like, when you first started with your companies and your entrepreneur journey, you obviously faced a lot of failure. How were you able to overcome that and then learn from that moving forward?
Oh, man. Yeah, it's I guess it's easier to say it now, but when you're going through failure, you just have to remind yourself why you're doing it, right? You have to remind yourself of why it is that you're doing what you're doing. I think what I would like to tell people who are listening is basically that, failure is a part of the journey, right? It doesn't define who you are, right? If you try something out and you fail at it, at least you tried, right? So you learned from it, right? It was funny because yesterday I interviewed someone. I'm doing a lot of hiring now for my new company. And the guy said something to me that was like, I love what he said. He said, what's the worst that can happen if I work with you? If things don't work out, at least I learned so much from you. And I would love to be able to learn from someone like you. And for me, that's the opportunity, right? Being able to work with someone like you and learn everything there is about social media marketing, everything there is about sales, everything there is about building teams, everything there is about whatever, raising money from investors. I said, being one of my initial hires, you're going to be able to be a part of that team that learns a lot of it, right? So he said, the way I look at it is like, this is a massive opportunity for me. It's a new company. And the worst thing that could happen is I learned a lot from you and I take that knowledge. So going back to the failure part, at least you learned, right? You took a lesson in. My mom gave me my first lesson in business, which was at the age of 16, right before I got kicked out. She was saving all this money for not a lot of money, but she was saving money to buy me a car. And then she said, one day I came to her and I was like, hey mom, like there's this opportunity, we're thinking of doing this big party and charging an entrance at the door. And, I need money because everyone's putting in money, right? Like everyone's putting in some money to put this party together. We're going to get this badass DJ. And I try to sell her on it. And she's like, look, the only money I have for you is the money I've been saving to buy you a car. Do you want to take that money and invest it into that party? And do you want to risk that money? If you lose it, you get no car. So I said, yeah, let's do it. Right. So she gave me the money. And then, obviously a handful of friends, we all put in money into this and we tried our best, man. Like we really, really tried our best from what we have thought we learned from doing other parties. And it just so happened to be that party didn't turn out to be the way we expected. And so we lost money. We lost our money. And so I was pretty bummed out. That was like one of my first business, like the first business failure that I had. And so I was pretty bummed out about it. And, obviously my mom saw me and she's like, what's wrong? And I said, I lost my money. So I have no car now. I'm not going to be able to buy a car. And she's like, well, what did you guys do wrong? And I basically broke it down to her. I already knew what we did wrong after that experience, right? Because you learn from it. Yeah. And she's like, okay, well then go do it again. Get a job, save money, put some money together, go do it again. Now do it better, right? Don't allow that to be why you give up and never do another party again. And so I learned that from her because she said, just do it again, do it better this time. Right. And she taught me that day, she taught me the lesson of don't give up just because you tried one time and you failed at it. Optimize, fix yourself, fix the errors or whatever you did wrong, and go out and do it again. And so we did. And we actually ended up doing a very successful party with over 1,000 kids showing up to the next party. And I was able to buy my car. And so, that was sort of the failure lesson that I learned early on in life, not to give up when you do come across failure. And so to me now, it's like, like what most people don't know is that, like, out of the successful, I want to say projects that I've done or companies, I failed like 8 or 9 times before that. And it was just part of it. Like, I compare to the time where I was training for a half marathon. After you run a certain amount of miles, your legs start hurting, your muscles start aching, right? And if you don't get it in your mind that pain is part of the process, you'll just end up, you'll stop and you'll want to give up, right? But when you convince your mind, like, oh, my muscles are hurting, my back is hurting, that's just all part of the process, and you keep running, you keep jogging, your body eventually just sort of adjusts, right? Yep. And that pain it doesn't go away, but your mind does not pay attention to it anymore, right? So that's what I learned about it with failure. That's my greatest advice to anyone, is just don't let that stop you.
That's awesome. You kind of said, like, you try to remind yourself of why you're doing it. What is your why when you're going through failure? Like, what do you say to yourself?
Oh my God. My number one why for me, and I don't share this with a lot of people or publicly, but I'll say it today. Like, my biggest why for what I'm doing, why I'm doing everything, is my mom. She basically came to this country. She suffered a lot for us to give us this great opportunity to be able to be where I'm at today. To have the opportunities that I have today. So anytime that I think about why I'm doing what I'm doing, I just think of her. I think of all the suffering that she went through, right? And it would always, I think about it as it would almost be a slap on her face for me to not take full advantage of the opportunity that I have here in this country, and being able to just focus and work my ass off to achieve success. My ultimate dream is to, like, in the next 3 years, is to show up and surprise her with $1 million check and just tell her, like, hey, like, this is for you, for everything that you did for her. Like, that's my vision in my mind. And when things get hard, I think of that thought, and the energy level just increases so much because of that. That's number one. Number two is obviously the things that I'm doing now in my life, now that I'm older, I think that have a greater purpose. I want to help as many people as I can possibly. I do want to help a lot of people. And I think that's my second why I'm doing what I'm doing today with my travel company. I want to be able to help as many people as possible. So that's also a great motivation and drive for an inspiration more than anything I can't wait till I'm able to say, like, I've helped, 50,000 people save a ton of money on travel, or I've helped 100,000 people, or we're helping millions of people save a ton of money on travel. But the greater purpose is obviously my mom. I think that's been my number one of all time. And in a second, third, fourth, fifth, right, financial freedom and all the other crap. But those are all, like, things that we strive to, like, achieve, and not really a why.
Yeah, I really love that neither one of your two reasons you just shared were about you. That's really hard for a lot of people, I think, to focus on others and put them before you put yourself. So I really give you a lot of credit for that. But moving into social transmedia, how were you able to make it successful very early on when you kind of first started out with that?
So we did so by the way, the company went on from social transmedia, became All Day Media. Right away, we changed the name of it because we thought social trans was really, like, not a good name. So we ended up changing the name to All Day Media. We planned a lot ahead of time. We did a lot of A/B testing before we actually launched the company. That was why, when right out of the gate, we were able to do what we did. Before we even started the company, we did a lot of testing. We did a lot of research. We tested a lot with different formats of advertising and marketing, and driving traffic back to our website, and what we were doing, how we were monetizing it. And so we knew that it was going to be successful based on, having about six to 8 months worth of testing the product and the company business model. And so then, one day, finally, I said, all right, this looks like it could be a real company. And, let's go ahead and register a company. Let's go ahead and, get things going as a real company, and let's go after raising money. But we actually came out the gate. So doing, I think, like close to $1 million our first month. And so that's why there's an article that talks about it. The Forbes article really talks about that. But I remember going to meetings with investors, and I was like, always up. So like, they thought I was crazy. I was like, look, we're going to come out, we're going to launch, we're going to do $1 million in revenue right off the bat. And so, I'm sure they thought I was crazy. I'm sure they thought, like, where's this kid? Like, what's he talking about? Like, no idea what he's talking about. What they didn't know was that we had already been working towards being able to test the full, not the full, but how much revenue we would be at scale, right? If we activated all these different accounts and influencers on social media to do what we did, to monetize the way we're monetizing. So we actually, we were able to do it. And it was just, we broke a lot of shit when we did that. I wouldn't recommend it. I wouldn't recommend for anyone to launch a company and scale, overnight the way we did back then, because we did break a lot. Our website was down a lot. We lost a lot of advertisers because of it. They weren't happy with us. We lost a lot of money because of it. And so I would recommend to slowly scale anything that you're doing before doing that. But yeah, that's how we did it. And, we kept running the company for it was about 4 years, raised a few $1 million, 2 different rounds of investment from angel investors all the way to venture capital companies. So, and I want to share this, like, during that process of me going out and raising money, like, really imagine like sitting in meetings trying to convince investors to give you millions of dollars. And, you're just sort of sitting there and I'm learning so much, the questions they're asking, right? Which is similar to, like, I would say, like what you guys are doing with the podcast, because sitting with entrepreneurs, you get to learn so much, right? Mm-hmm. And so I went to 20 different meetings with 20 different investors over a period of a year. And during those meetings, I got to learn a lot. So I would take the questions they would ask me, and if I was not able to answer them, I would go back and do research on it, right? I would go back and do a ton of research on it. And I would educate myself on what these investors were talking about, user acquisition cost, a ton of stuff, like, different metrics that they were asking about, retention and conversions and all that, right? So I would go back and educate myself, and then I got better and better and better and better. And so it was a great journey. I think the company grew from just being 3-4 of us to probably about over 40 different employed people, that half of them were remote, the other half were in our office. I really got an opportunity to learn what it's like to build teams and recruit people to come and work, convince people to come and work, to leave their jobs and come and work for you. I got an opportunity to work with a very sophisticated structure, where, having management, having different tiers of management, approving budgets for hiring, forecasting, 3-4 quarters ahead. Just understanding all that process was a great experience for me, which is what led me to where I am today. And, after moving on with that, from that company, I took some time off to just start traveling the world and trying to figure out what would inspire me to do what I'm doing now.
That's awesome. So obviously you have a lot of experience with like hiring people to build, like in building teams. So like, what are some important things to know as a founder when like you set out to build a team and hire people?
Yeah, I think that the number one mistake that companies make when they hire people or they look to hire people is focus on experience more than focus on whether that person's going to fit the culture of the company. Culture to me now is number one. I could train you to do a specific job. I could train you to do I can invest time and money into teaching you what needs to be done. Obviously, I would rather hire somebody that has 1 or 2 years experience in the field and just have them learn and work up to it. For specific positions. Obviously, I'm not going to go and hire a CFO who just started working as a CFO last year. But I'm talking about everyone outside of the C-level jobs, positions. talking about marketing or sales or operations or account managers, like, the vast majority of what you really makes up maybe about 90% of your company. When I look to hire people, I always look at the culture. I always think of, would that person be a good fit for the team? Does that person fit what our mission is? Does he truly believe in our mission as a company? And that's number one. Number two is obviously the experience and how that person carries themselves. I did an interview yesterday, Sunday. I went out and a guy flew in from Finland to come and interview with me.
Wow.
And and it was great because we were just kind of chatting online. And then I said, yeah, if you want an opportunity, man, I would love to interview you. Like 2 days later, he's like, hey, I'm flying into LA on Saturday, sorry. And I was like, holy shit. So I was like, great. So I spent my Sunday, a few hours with him on Sunday. And obviously when somebody's, looking to get an opportunity to be hired, they're going to tell you all their greatest things about themselves, right? They're going to tell you everything that they can to try to sell themselves. And after he was done with it, I was like, great. Now tell me, what are you not good at? What keeps you at night? What keeps you up at night? Like, tell me some of your weaknesses. Like be real with me. Like, be completely open with me. What do you wish you were better at? Right. And when I kind of slapped him with that, he was just kind of like taken back and was like, so he just kind of opens up and starts going into it. And I really appreciated that he opened up to me, because all the things that you mentioned were just things that he's really hard on himself with. He wants to be better. He wants to grow. He's been on this journey of self-awareness for the last 2 years. So he opened up a lot of the things that he's not good at. But to me, those are all things that everybody's dealing with, right? Even myself, right? Yeah. So I always tend to look at that, ask that question. You just told me everything you're good at. Great. Now tell me what you're not good at. What keeps you up at night, right? Are you the person who like hates waking up early? Are you the kind of person that looks forward to going home after work? Just tell me all of it. I want to know the real you. You already told me all the things that you're great at. That's awesome. But tell me the things that you're not great at. So I look to make sure that a person fits in well with the company. And obviously for high level guys, like CEOs, if you're looking to hire like a chief operating officer for your company, I obviously experience is number one, obviously. And then two is making sure that they know that they fit in well with the company as well.
Definitely. So all revolves around like those two pillars. And then obviously like self-awareness is so important in like every aspect of what you do. So like when did you like learn that, and what are some things you practice to like constantly be self-aware?
Oh man, I always say this. I wish I would have learned that a long time ago. Unfortunately, I didn't. I just started my journey of self-awareness about 3 years ago, about 3 years ago, actually. I was going through this. I was in this long-term relationship, almost 10 years of my life. And I knew that there was something that deep down inside, I wasn't really happy. And so I started basically listening to a lot of podcasts about self-awareness, and, watching a lot of the YouTube videos on self-awareness more than often, more than I did in the past. I started paying attention to it because it resonated with me at the time. I was looking for an answer as to why, I was at this, I was having one of the best years of my life as far as, financial success, company's great, everything's moving right. But deep down inside, I'm coming home and I'm not happy. Right. And then, so I went to a meeting with my friend, and he was like, what are you doing on Saturday? What are you doing this weekend? I was like, I have a meeting with an investor, and, I can't miss it. And he's like, cancel it. I want you to go with me on this retreat. And I was like, dude, I can't cancel the meeting. And he was like, no, just do me a favor. Just cancel the meeting. And I don't know why he invited me to this. Obviously, his sister is the one that runs this retreat, a self-awareness retreat, self-growth, personal growth retreat. So he invited me to that, but he was more coming on to me more genuine, just trying to because we had a conversation about how I wasn't really something was inside of me, something was not right. So I went to this retreat, and that was sort of my first step of breaking through, of realizing holy shit, I don't even know myself. Right. And so I had a lot of breakthroughs that weekend. It was Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And then from that point on, I started listening to a lot more podcasts, started to do a lot more research, self-awareness, and just started changing my mindset on, I started getting to know myself a lot better. And it started changing a lot of my drive and a lot of my motivation, to the point where I wasn't even intrigued by my company anymore. you know, and my partner noticed that, because he was like, is everything okay with you? I noticed that, you know, you're coming in, you're really not engaged. You're not here with us. Like, you're here with us, but you're not really here with us. Is everything okay? Like, self-awareness can really change the game for you. It would change the game for anybody, I think. It could literally be like you guys can, I'm just saying, like, let's say you knew nothing about self-awareness, and you think that this podcast is what you love to do, right? Like, because you've been influenced by your friends that this is like the cool thing to do, and like, this is great. You've been influenced by society to, like, this is it. Like, all these people talking about it, and you guys doing great. All of a sudden, you come to this awareness state, like high level consciousness that you're like, I don't even fucking enjoy doing this. Why am I doing this? Right? I'm doing this because everyone's told me that it's the thing to do. Like, I'm going out and working because I have the nice cars. You know, at the time I was like that type of person too. I was just telling my girlfriend yesterday this, like, it's so funny how at the time I cared about what people thought about me. Like, I always wanted to be the guy that had the best car in the office. You know, I always wanted to be the guy that had the best of everything. Did that, and I didn't really do it for myself. I did it because I cared what other people thought about me. I wanted to have this status and as an entrepreneur. And if you saw my Instagram back then, if you saw my Instagram now, it was night and day. Like, back then it was all cars, Lamborghinis, Rolls Royce, like stupid, expensive stuff that was unnecessary, because I was trying to get people to approve of me and like me and think of me as this great. And it wasn't until a friend of mine told me, like, that's not really you. Like, I've known you for years. Like, I've known you for over 10 years, and that's not really you. Like, you're a great person. You're a person who cares about others. Like, you're, you know, this great person that motivates people and inspires people. And so why not put that type of energy out instead of this bullshit that you put out that's all materialistic, you know? And so, yeah, so I started going through that process and learning a lot about myself. And it was hard at first, man, because, like, once you get to know yourself, especially the kind of person I used to be back then, you start really being very disappointed with yourself.
Yeah.
You start really, I became really disappointed with myself. Like, why am I like this? Like, why have I been like this? Why have I not taken the time to getting to know myself? And so I moved on from that company and told myself that I wasn't going to get into anything new until I had really gotten to know myself deep down inside. And I've gone through the process of understanding why I was going to do something. And that's when I started really digging deep and going through the changes. And that's what got me here today. It's like, now, you know, one of my cars leased after having it for 3 years was up last year in November. I parked the car in the garage, hardly ever drove it, only had like 19,000 miles on it when I returned it. I was so glad that the car was done and over, because I was like, I'm sitting here with like almost a $2,000 monthly payment that I don't even freaking use. And so I was so glad that it was done and over with. I was like, man, like, but the old Eric would have have that car in the garage just as a prized possession, as a trophy to like measure my success. And really now the new Eric is not really looking at, you know, the materialistic things that I have in life, but rather, you know, how many people I can help, right? How many lives I can change, how can I be a better role model to those around me? To me, that's more important now. And that's all been because of the self-awareness process that I've gone through over the last 3 years.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I think on social media, like, you see a lot of that, like people who post like their luxury goods and stuff like that don't get as much attention and don't have as much success as those who are just like actually real with people. And then especially just their level of influence. Like, people don't want to like see people brag about their achievements. They want to like see how they actually got there and things that like motivate them, things like that.
Yeah, it's changing a lot for sure. It's changing a lot. I think there's a lot more people now on social media putting out good content, positive, inspirational content. And I think that this last year and a half, especially 2018, there was a big shift. There was a big paradigm shift in that space of social media, where a lot more people started doubling down on putting out good content that inspires people rather than putting out content that may seem like what we used to put out. Like, and I hear from a bunch of people now that I speak to, that I've spoken to over the last year and a half, like, you know, that they're more engaged with that type of inspirational content than they are with the materialistic bullshit content, like the Lamborghini photo, that kind of stuff. There's still a small amount of people, obviously. There's always going to be that are driven by that are motivated by that. But I think those are people that are just beginning their journey, and that's okay. That doesn't mean they're bad people. It just means that they haven't really found the answer, the self-awareness process. And I recommend that for everybody now. It's like, go through that process before you commit, before you start thinking of building a company. Get to understanding yourself better and why you're doing it. Like, why are you guys doing this podcast? Can I ask you guys a question?
Yeah.
Like, individually, why are you guys doing this podcast?
For me, it's just to meet individuals like you who have had like felt success and can give us the tribulations and like the experiences that they've gone through, really. Because a lot of like the most successful people we talk to all say like it's not about the money, like it'll fulfill you for a little bit, but eventually you still feel like you want more. So a lot of people really say just focus on the mindset and try to be happy. And that was something I never would have like thought of before I came into this. So that's like one of the biggest things that I've learned so far.
And like for me, it's like the same thing, but it also goes like further than that, because like us learning through you, and then we could put it out publicly. Like people like Christian and I, who are just like normal college students that like want more out of life, can like tap into what we're doing and learn from our questions. And like just from what we're doing now, like people that tune into this whenever it's released could listen to this whenever they want and be inspired by, and just see like there's others out there that are thinking like this and that want more out of life. So it's kind of just also learning ourselves, but also inspiring others to learn and to like see what's possible through what we're doing.
That's amazing. I think like, yeah, what you said is great. Like both of you have a great answer to why you're doing it. And then as you're doing this, right, like what you said was like, you may be inspiring other people by them listening to us talk. Something's going to click, right? Because we get so much information from so many people, but only certain things resonate with us.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've heard so many speakers. I've heard so many speakers in on stage or even on a YouTube video, but only maybe like a handful of them have really like struck with resonating with me, right? And the fact that you guys have different personalities and different types of entrepreneurs on the podcast, you're going to also resonate with certain people, and others you may not resonate with as much. And I think it's great that you guys are doing what you're doing, because you're making an impact in the community, especially in your school. I'm pretty sure you guys are known about, people know that you guys are doing this stuff. So that's great, man. Hats off to you guys for taking the time. You guys could be out there, fucking off and doing other things. But here you are sitting down with me and listening in.
Yeah, I agree with what you said about like how certain things resonate. We interviewed a guy named Peter Sage, and the thing that he said that really stuck with me, he said that be happy now. Don't like wait until you make $1 million to be happy. Don't wait till you graduate college to be happy. Don't wait for the weekend to be happy. Like be happy in the moment, because if you're always chasing happiness or like waiting for something to be happy, you're just never actually going to get there, and you're just going to be constantly chasing it your whole life. So I really, really align with that.
Can we talk about that for a minute? Because when I was broke, and I would hear people say, "Don't focus on the money. Money's not gonna make you happy." When you're broke, that doesn't make sense, right? You're like, yeah, fucking right. Like you're saying that because you're already sitting on millions of dollars, so it's easy for you to say that. And I want to say this, like now I figured it out. Now later on in life, I figured out why people say that it's not about the money. It's not because you get to having money that you figure out, or that you can say it's not about the money. It's because of all the shit you've been through to get to that point where you've actually made some money, right? That you've figured out that, hey, now that I have it, like the money is not the happiness, right? The fun times, the happiness were me building that company. The happiness, I remember like, and here it goes back to like the whole cliche thing of saying like, enjoy the journey, right? Not the outcome of the end goal or whatever you get to. The reason why, guys, is because like I got to a point in my last company where at the end of all of it, I was showing up to the office not being happy. I was showing up to the office remembering the times where it was just 5 of us and we were having a blast and we were crashing our website because we had so much traffic. I remember one time we had like And one day we had like over 3 million unique visitors to our website. And we did well, I mean, if you looked at, on average, we had about 50 to 60 million readers a month on the site that I launched with the previous company. And so, but one time we did this article about this lady who lost 1,000 pounds, almost 1,000 pounds. And she looked amazing after all these years of just going through the process of, getting surgery and all that stuff. And, obviously we posted a before and after photo of that. Dude, I remember it was like our Google Analytics went all the way to 100,004 people live, right? And then our site crashed. And I remember, and I love telling this story because I remember calling like my tech guys and my CTO, and I'm like, what the hell is going on? Going crazy over different people trying to figure it out. We have AWS automatic, like we have the auto scale feature on the servers. We have 35 servers. Why did our site crash? Like we have so much money being lost right now from the advertisers because our site was completely gone. Like it was just white. Like it wasn't even load, dude. And so we had days with, our average day was like 1.5 million unique visitors, right? Our average day. This day we had double the amount of traffic in our site. So to me, I remember like sitting there and like, man, those were like fun times, like those were the fun days where we would post a link and it would go viral and it would get shared so many times. And I remember like, man, those are all the happy times that I had, like getting up to this point. And now that we're at this point, like I remember going into meetings after meetings after meetings after meetings after meetings after meetings. And it was like, I'm not happy anymore, right? And so when people talk about enjoy the journey, enjoy the process, the reason why is that you're going to miss the days. You guys are going to miss like being in your, who knows, like this podcast in a year from now could be at a studio, right? And you guys could have a staff and it's all being organized and you no longer have to do the emailing or the messaging and all that stuff, right? So while you're building this and while you're working on getting to that point, I don't know if that's your goal to build it into a much bigger podcast, on one of the top podcasts like Joe Rogan, enjoy this time. Enjoy the times where you guys just take time to enjoy that, the fact that you're still able to reach out to me and get a response or reach out to another. And then you guys are the ones conversating with me. Right? Because imagine once you get to a point where you're making a ton of money with the podcast, you don't have to email anybody. You're just given a schedule and you're like, here, show up, do it. You might still be having fun, but you're going to miss the days where you were working on it because they're fun times. I don't know about you guys, but I enjoy the first 2 or 3 years of building a company more than I do after that. And the reason why is simply because those are the fun times where you actually get to learn a lot and you get to like have fun with it, a lot more fun. You get to be scrappy. I'm not a 5-10 year executive person who wants to be put in a role of like, hey, there's this company and 100 employees, go ahead and manage it. Like, I don't want to do that. I would rather be the guy who builds it to 100 employees and then hires an executive to come in and take it from that point and also be a part of the team. That's how I see myself. And it's also good to recognize what you're good at, what your strengths are and what your weaknesses are so that you know how to move forward with what you're doing.
Right.
That's so true. Like, me and him both, I think you could say the same thing. Like there's like moments that we could like pick out in time from like since we started. Like when we launched our, I think like second episode, like we randomly like went into the top charts on like iTunes and like we were just like, it was like late at night and then early the next morning we're just like FaceTime each other. Like it's like 5 minutes later we go up like 2 more spots and I just get a FaceTime. I'm just like, holy shit, do you see us on the charts? And like those are times we'll always remember. And then like simply like messaging people that we look up to and like have been following for so long, and then like you just get a notification. It's like they just agreed to an interview, and like we just get a FaceTime. We're like freaking out. Like,
I don't want the day to come where we'll land someone like crazy. I don't know, like say Donald Trump one day, and it's like, oh, we got Trump. Like, cool. See you at 12. Like, I still want it to be
exactly. That's exactly my point. Or imagine like you get to a point where you're always on the top 10. Like you're always at the top. Like, how do you think Joe Rogan feels always being on the top 10?
Yeah.
Like he probably doesn't even know he's always on the top 10 now because it's become a norm for him. So now I think now his focus is around the fact that he gets to interview just about anyone that he wants and smokes weed with Elon Musk on his show, right? Like that was like epic and crazy that even happened. But for you guys, I always say like enjoy the process, enjoy the journey because you're gonna miss those days. Like you said, like one day you're gonna be interviewing Donald Trump or whoever else, and it's gonna be like, hey, who do we have on schedule for next week? Oh, we have Donald Trump. We have Mark Cuban and this, that. it's going to be exciting, but it's not going to be the level of excitement of when you guys were actually the ones putting in the little bit of work to get to that point because it was exciting. So that's what people say, like, fall in love with that part. Fall in love with the part of that we just talked about, right?
Exactly.
Fall in love with that part as you continue to grow. You're still in love with the part that you're playing. You're still in part. You're seeing your baby grow. You're seeing it develop into something of a more sophisticated organization that has a staff, employees, has a podcast producer. I'm working on rolling out a podcast in the near future. So what I'm looking for now is I'm looking for a producer. I'm looking for someone to come in and do all the work that I would normally do if I was, 10 years back. I would probably be doing all that work myself. And I am getting involved in understanding the equipment. So I may actually reach out to you guys and be like, hey, what do you guys think about this equipment and stuff like that?
Yeah,
But
for sure. Help you get that up and running.
I would say fall in love with the journey because that's what brings the true happiness. And if you can fall in love with that, money will come as you build it, because you enjoy so much that you're doing it, that money is not the focus of it. And it actually provides, money is just a vehicle that provides more opportunity for what you want to do.
Yeah. And just another thing I want to add, like everyone like is always asking like, okay, how do I find my why? Like, how do I find what I'm passionate about? And like, I've worked on like startups and businesses and ideas in the past. And like I feel like you just have to like go out and like expose yourself to doing different things. Cause like once you start doing something like this, where like, like you love doing this, like you get a high from someone responding or like getting like a cool question or cool answer on an interview. Like that's how like you're in the right spot and you're doing what you want to do.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like most people are like, how do I find my why? Exactly what you said. It comes to you. It comes to you as long as you're putting yourself out there, right? If I wouldn't have started traveling the world 2 years ago more often, if I wouldn't have started traveling the world, if I wouldn't have put myself out there and started working with more hotels and resorts and visiting all these different destinations around the world, I would have not been able to come up with Travel Smarter, right? I would have not identified that there's a gap in that space a problem that needs to be solved. I would have not known that, right? So most people are like, well, I don't know what my why is, or I don't know what I'm passionate about. Okay, though, they just get the car, it's like trying to push a dead car, right? Initially, it's going to be hard. As you start getting traction, it starts becoming easier and easier. Just put yourself out there. Take up a job with something you think you might like. If you don't like it, quit the damn job. Go work somewhere else and start again. And eventually, you'll figure it out. Eventually, something will click, and you will find that, like, holy shit, like you said, like you guys, like I enjoy doing this. Like, oh, crazy. Like I'm working at this new company, whatever, and I'm enjoying it. And then you figure out a way to even work from that point on. So that's a good way of saying it. It comes to you. I don't think you should stress about it.
Yeah, I just want to go back to what you were saying when you got like 300,000 hits on one article. What was the company called for that? Like, what the news?
All Day Media, and it was a website called, at the time, it was a website called allday.com. We would writing everything from like travel content to history content to lifestyle and viral content, just like any viral stories that we come up with. We would that was really the majority of our traffic, was to the viral stuff, to the like topics, the relatable topics that people love to click on Facebook. And it was 3 million visitors, not 300,000 visitors. It was 3 million visitors in one day.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So where do you like come up with those stories? Do you find them on other articles or outlets and then rewrite them, or do you just get them organically?
Okay, so the crazy part was that my editorial team at the time, my managing editors and my writers gave me, like, they gave me shit for that, because I was watching a television show on this called My 600-Pound Life. Right? And they just happened to talk about this lady who had like lost close to 1,000 pounds. And then I went and Googled it, and I found all this information about her, and I found all her before and after photos. And so I sent it to one of my writers. So I kind of like, I overstep boundaries. Guys, if you're building a company, don't overstep boundaries. If you have people that are in charge of certain departments and whatnot, I learned this the hard way. So don't overstep boundaries, because you make certain people that are in charge of certain departments and certain responsibilities that you've hired to do a certain job, you make them feel like they're not worth, right? They're not worth anything. And they feel disrespected. So, but that specific article, I found the topic, I Googled it, I did all the research on it, and I sent it to a writer. I'm like, write the story. We're going to share it first thing in the morning. And so no one knew that this was happening. But I've always been really good at finding topics that I feel like I've always been really good at marketing. So I know this is how I built my social media network to over 40 million followers now, combined Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, is because I've always been really great at identifying like what people are going to like and what people are going to engage with on social. So I sent it out, put it out, boom, it went out. But that was not the process of how we come up with stories. The process was we had an editorial team and they would every day look at what's happening in history or what's happened in the past around this time in history. They would look at different topics. They would discuss it. They would have a board. They would put up different ideas. We had writers who would share their ideas. And then obviously the editors would approve it. Most articles would not get approved. Some would get approved. Maybe about 30% would get approved. And then they would write the story on it. It would go to the managing editor for final review. And then it would get published and then shared across our social media accounts.
That's insane. So obviously you have a huge social media following. What are like the biggest keys to success to growing those kind of pages and making them go viral?
I would say consistency, number one, being consistent with your schedule on posting. And I know for a fact that that's the key to the biggest success that I have is just being consistent. Because I have, there's so many accounts right now. I'm actually looking for somebody to come and step in and also help out. There's only one other person that's helping us out right now, but we have so many accounts that on some other accounts that we've kind of have not been consistent. The growth has just plummeted. Really? And we've actually lost followers because we're losing followers on a day-to-day basis because of it. And I'm talking about smaller accounts with like 1.4 million, like a million. So, but the bigger accounts where we've been really consistent with the accounts that have like 14.7 million, like 3.94 million, those accounts, we have been consistent with them from day one, hasn't stopped. And it's just been continuous growth. In fact, nowadays, like even with the updates on the algorithm, we've seen even more growth because of the consistency. And so I think consistency is number one with growing an audience. And even if you think like you only have 1,000 followers and that's not a lot of people, what I always tell people is like, just imagine 1,000 people showing up to hear you speak. What does that look like? And that's what you have in front of you on Instagram, right? You have 1,000 followers, right? So the algorithm is only reaching about 300 on average. Okay, great. Come up with ideas on how you can put out better content where if your average 300 people are seeing that, how do you get them to engage with it so that it increases the reach on that post to 500 people or 600 people or 700 people, right? How do you provide that value to the people that you're following, right? And do it on a consistent basis. The second thing I would say is that besides consistency is taking the time to actually being unique with how you're doing it, with what you're putting out. Don't just don't just basically like, we tend to look at content and, depending on what account we're talking about, but we tend to look at three different things. Are people going to find this valuable to them? Are they going to really engage with it? Number two, right? And number three is how do we get them to engage with it even further by the caption that we use on the post, right? So we've done that over time, not every single day, but we've done that over time. And I think that actually does really work great. And then the last thing I want to talk about is something new that we're going to start doubling down on, which is stories, Instagram stories. Post stories every single day. We're not doing it right now. Like I said, we're just hired another editor who's going to come in and start editing all of our stories. We're going to have, 20 or 30 different stories across, 7 or 8 different social media accounts on day-to-day basis. Especially now with the IGTV, you can have longer formatted videos that you can feature on the feed. Have you guys seen that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I would say stories and IGTV are the two other channels within Instagram that you can also, I'm a big Instagram person, so I just kind of give advice on that. Twitter is still growing for us, but it's kind of like not really like a big platform for it. So we're going to double down on Instagram and we're going to double down on YouTube this year.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's really good. So like, how does your workload compare now to when you first started those accounts?
It obviously, like, I think the workload now, I mean, there's two topics, like workload versus how do I manage my time and how do I work? What's my work strategy now? I think workload is always going to increase as you continue to grow. Like, that's why I'm looking to hire more people right now, is because we have such a large network of assets that we're not maximizing and capitalizing on. And they just kind of just been like, we've been consistent on posting on the regular feed, but we haven't posted stories. We haven't posted IGTV. We haven't. And so now that we've launched a new company called Travel Smarter, we're going to be focusing on taking full advantage of the feed, of the stories, of the IGTV, because we right now, just with the feed alone, just with regular feed alone, we reach an average of 15 to 20 million people a day, right?
Wow.
Across that's across like Instagram accounts a day. That's the reach on every post. If you measure the reach on every post on every account across Instagram, 20 million people. That's just on the feed. Imagine if we were to post stories every day. Imagine if we were to post IGTV every day, right?
Mm-hmm.
How many more millions of people we can reach, right? And so that's why I'm looking at doing that. So I would say be consistent. There's 3 channels on Instagram you can take full advantage of: the feed, stories, and IGTV. Take full advantage of it.
Yeah.
Awesome.
That's gotta feel like so powerful. Like just putting something out and knowing like millions of people are gonna see this and engage with it.
Yeah, it's not really a feeling of powerful. It's more of a feeling of it like you always ask yourself, like, because I guess when the goal becomes to provide value, like when your mindset is always about providing value, the mindset is always like, I really hope people love this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I really hope people enjoy this, like, right? It's not like I really hope, I get all these likes, and it's like more like I really hope people love this stuff that we're putting out, right? Like, how can we get people to, because that's the value we provide, right? A travel photo, a destination that hasn't been shot, an epic shot of the Eiffel Tower has been shot thousands of times and been posted thousands of times. So when we look at posting the Eiffel Tower, can we post it in a different way, from a different point of view, right? Like, I really hope people are gonna love this. On Earthpics, we posted this. I posted this video on the Eiffel Tower that I thought was really cool. It shows the spring, it shows like blooming and all this other stuff. And the video only got like 500,000 views, where on average we get about 1.5 million views on the videos. So that was kind of like, but a lot of people still enjoyed it, so I was kind of cool with it. But it's always the pressure. Mm-hmm. It's not so much about feeling powerful. It's more about the pressure.
Yeah, that's actually a cool way to think about it.
And then with your
increases. It's like the more followers you have, the more the pressure increases.
Mm-hmm.
The more you want to provide value, and the more you wonder, like, it's a community, right? It's a community. And like, I guess, I don't know if I'm the only one who thinks about it this way, but I think about it as in like, I do care about my community, right? I do care about them. So when I post something, I want that to be of value to them, right? So if I'm gonna just think short term and I'm just gonna post whatever the hell I want, I get worried that my community is gonna notice that, right? So I always do my best. I always strive to do my best when we post something. That's the goal. It's just the pressure increases. It's not really about the power, but yeah.
Yep. And then I think I read on one of your bios or online that you try to direct traffic to your website from your posts. Is that correct? Like, is that like the main goal of the huge followings that you have, to try to direct them onto your website?
No, that was the previous company. The previous company was it was always about directing traffic to our site. That's how we went from 50,000 readers a month to over 50 million, or close to 60 million readers a month, is by directing people to our traffic to go to our website. And it was, you could do that in a lot of ways. You could do that in a lot. Like, if you guys are posting a podcast, I would, post the best 10-second snippet of your podcast, right? Those one-liners that really hit hard. Overlay some letters over the video on your podcast, the caption, make it like hype it up, right? Yep. And then boom, link in bio, or check us out on iTunes, because that's what's going to drive traffic back to what you guys want people listening to. So there's all these creative ways that you guys can achieve that. And we were doing it at the time from Twitter, from Facebook. Easier there because you can share links on the post. Mostly 70% of our traffic was from Facebook back then. So yeah, I would say for you guys running a podcast, I would double down on Facebook, because you can drive people back to your podcast.
Awesome.
And swipe ups as well. Like, I think swipe ups are great for you guys.
Mm-hmm. That's like Facebook hasn't really been any piece of advice anyone's ever given us. So we'll definitely try that out. But just to conclude, we have a little lightning round of 4 quick questions that we ask you. You can give brief answers. But first, we want to ask you if you have any questions for us before we get into that.
Yeah. I would say, I mean, I've already asked you guys why you're doing this, and who are 3 people that you guys like the ultimate goal to have on your, like, who would blow your brain if you could have on your
This goes back
podcast?
to our first episode.
Yeah, second episode we did an
okay.
interview, or not an interview. It was before we did interviews. It was like our dream guest list of who we'd want to have on. Like we both picked 3 people.
Oh, you guys talked about it on the second episode?
Yeah, but now I feel like it's changed. And it's also expanded into more people.
We'll want to alternate. We'll do one at a time.
Yeah, I think the first one I'd like to have on would be oh my god.
I'll say mine. Michael Jordan. That's easy.
Michael Jordan? Okay.
Yeah, mine would be Elon Musk and Peter Thiel.
Nice. I knew you were gonna say Elon. For some reason, I was like, this guy's an Elon type of guy. Yep.
I was gonna go Elon next, so I'm trying to switch out of the
There's
athletes.
too many.
Yeah, Peter Thiel's fucking a beast. He's
I would go
amazing.
Drake. I just would want to ask him, like, how do you, like, the amount of amazing music he's put out over the course of the years, like his lucrative following. I'd just like that'd be insane.
Yeah, I'll go on that and say Kanye.
Kanye, yeah, that'd be interesting, man. Yeah, I when you think about music, right? Like my girlfriend and I were just talking about this topic. Also, is why is it that most artists fade out, like kind of just fade out after a while, but then you have like the one-offs, right? Like the one-off stories like Drake and like, Kanye, who every time they come back or every time they put out something, it's just like number one. It hits number one every time. And I think, look, even in business, right? Like I think even in business, there's like your Elon Musks of the world. And then there's also like all these millions of entrepreneurs who are maybe making $1 million to $10 million a year, who are not billionaires, but they're still doing fucking amazing.
Yep.
I think so. Having somebody like Drake and asking him that question, that would be.
Yeah. And then my last person I would say would be Phil Knight, because I'm obsessed with Nike. As you can see, Nike hoodie, like his story of starting out just selling shoes out of the back of his truck to going into being the biggest clothing name logo recognizable in the world. That's amazing to me.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's good. So, but if you were to say both of you would just share one in common, who would that be?
Tiger Woods.
Yeah, that's one guy in common that you guys would be like, okay, we have to have on here.
Like if Tiger, like I just think, I know like Tiger gets a lot of hate and stuff. Like for me, I've been like a huge Tiger Woods fan, like growing up, because like I love to golf and all that kind of stuff. I just think it's like cool. Like I want to know why he kept going and like kept trying to come back, because like I feel like if it was me or if it was anyone else and like you go through all that shit, like you go through like 5 injuries and like you're still trying to come back and win, like I just want to like know like what drives him to do that.
And he just won, right? Like he just won after like 10 years or something like that.
Yep.
So I just want to know like how the hell he stayed with it, because like this guy has enough money to retire. He's won more than anyone else. So like why is he putting himself through like all this criticism from the media, all these injuries, all that wear and tear on his body? And then like how good did it feel like when he actually finally won and like proved his point?
Yeah. That's such an amazing question. Look, I think what you guys have going on for yourselves, I'll tell you, like, always try to identify what you have that you can use as an advantage of strategy, right? And I think what you guys have going for yourselves is that, one, you're young, you're college students who are really trying to make an impact in the world. And I would say this, man, like, use that as an advantage to how you pitch yourselves when you reach out to people, right? Do that. Like put a spreadsheet of people that you want to talk to, right? And then go after just trying to get their contacts, right? And I would do this. Like I would put a spreadsheet of names, top 10, and then I would create like contacts, manager, this, that. Like I have a friend of mine who's only 23, I think 24. And this kid, I've worked with him for so long, because when it comes to getting contacts, I don't know how he does it, but he's been able to put me in touch with just about anyone I want. And I'm like, dude, how do you do it, man? And then he walked me through his process of how he does it. And he literally he's like, man, like you can get in touch with just about anyone you want, especially with the internet nowadays, right? Like you can find out like Are they following someone that you may know? Are they who is their manager, right? Who represents them? Right? Who's their PR firm? Who's their publicist? Who's Tiger Woods' publicist? Like, does he have a publicist? Does he have a PR firm? Okay, reach out to them. Pitch yourselves as like giving back and doing this great thing that you guys are doing, and eventually, like, you're gonna hear back from people, right? And so I think that, you know, getting in the mindset, like, who would ever thought that I would meet Elon Musk and I would be on a text message basis with the guy? Three years before, I bought my Tesla, and I was like, one day I'm gonna meet the owner of Tesla, and one day I'm gonna be friends with him. Right? I just said that because I loved everything that he was about. And I remember the first time I went to go meet with him, I text somebody that I know who's like runs this company that's done $200 million in sales and whatnot. And I was like, he's a car person. And I was like, on my way to see Elon Musk. And he was like, yeah, fucking right. You know, like, nobody believed it, man. And you think about it, it's like anything you think about, you can turn into a reality. Anything, right? As long as you put your mind to it, as long as you don't doubt it. Like, the number one thing that blocks people from achieving their goals is doubt. That's it. Because once doubt kicks in, dude, like, you're done. Like, you know, you've lost, basically. Yeah. Like, once you doubt yourself, you've lost, right? If you don't doubt yourself, like, put a vision board of all the guys that you guys want to meet that have on the podcast, and then put an action board next to it and be like, how are we going to do that? Great. Let's email 5 or 10 people that may be closest to these people, and one person's going to come back to us and be like, oh, hey, by the way, I sent over your press kit to them, and we'll hear back. And you'll see how things just kind of start falling into place, because you made it fall into place, not because you made it fall into place.
Yeah, it's actually funny because, like, one of the biggest things that we do and, like, we're really on top of is this thing called a black book. So we interviewed this one guy that, like, was the king of, like, connecting people with, like, these, you know, entrepreneurs and influencers. And it's just like a spreadsheet that we have, and it's like every single person we reach out to, and then, like, we'll add people, like Tiger Woods, we'll add his thing. We'll say, this is the contact we reach out to him. We'll say, like, the status and all that kind of stuff. So we're just keeping, like, a list of contacts. And then that's also, like, valuable in the future. Like you said, like, when you want to connect other people with them, reach out to them to do other things. And then also, like, the manifestation thing is, like, just knowing that someday or sometime, like, these people will respond. Like, you'll have the opportunity to do it. That's been huge. Like, writing it down on, like, whiteboards. Like, the second episode we did, that was, like, the whole idea behind it is, like, when we did the episode, we were like, yeah, we're going to interview these 3 people. Like, these are who we want to interview. And then, like, you're going to see us interview these people in a year from now. And then we're going to be like, look back to the second episode where we predicted it and everyone called us crazy.
Yeah, exactly, man. And that's how it happens. It's just by putting it out there, speaking it out, and believing it. That's it, right? Thinking it, speaking it out, and believing it, and it'll happen. It'll be a matter of time before it happens. So my hat's off to you guys for what you guys are doing. Really, really love the stuff that you guys are doing. And thanks for reaching out and giving me an opportunity to be on your podcast, man.
Absolutely. All right. So we'll just get with the lightning round, then we'll get you out of here. We've had a great talk so far, but here we go. Okay. First, what advice would you give to your 18-year-old self if you could talk to him for 30 seconds?
Great. So this is a question that I was asked when I was speaking in front of like 3,000 people one day. Like, what is that advice that I would give myself as a younger Eric? I would tell myself that not to stress, because everything's going to be all right. Like, no matter, don't stress. Everything's going to be all right. Like, you're going to figure it out sooner or later, right? You're going to become successful. Every person who becomes successful always knew inside of them they had it. Like, I remember being a kid and knowing that there was something special about me outside of my brothers, like outside of my brothers and my sister. Like, I knew that I was different than the rest of my family. Like, I just knew it. Like, something weird inside would tell me that. And so I would tell my younger self, like, don't stress about anything, man. Like, everything's going to be good, right? And just follow your intuition, because it's never going to be wrong. It's never going to be wrong. And that is the number one thing. Like, everything's going to be okay. Follow your intuition. When your gut feeling tells you something, it's giving you a certain feeling. That is your higher self, your spirit, your soul, your alignment with the universe. We're made out of energy, right? Your connection to the entire source energy. That is it speaking to you. And the times where I've ignored it, I've either had bad experiences or fucking lost.
Yep.
Well, that's the advice I would give myself.
That's incredible. All right. Second one, what's the best advice you've ever gotten? And then what's the worst advice?
Oh man, let's start off with the best advice because that's probably the easiest one. Um, I think it was Elon Musk who said, "Your goal in life should be to wake up every day, right, and be more useful and less wrong."
Wow, that's sweet.
Your goal in life, if you can do that every single day when you wake up, if you can strive to be more useful and less wrong, you'll succeed in everything you do, right? More useful meaning be of value to those around you. Be of value. Be the most valuable person. Be more useful to yourself. Like, how can you accomplish more every single day, right? Don't just fucking sit around. You know, guys, Elon talks about working your ass off 80 hours a week type deal, type that. Like, he's a guy who does it himself. Like, whenever he'll text me, like I'll text him once in a while, and then I don't get a reply till like 1:30 in the morning, and I'm like, he's like, sorry, I'm just getting home from work right now. It's like 2 in the morning. I'm like, holy shit. Same with like Mark Cuban when him and I would chat on his app. Like he would be like, I was like, did you just wake up? Because I know he's like 2 hours ahead of me. He's like, no, I haven't gone to sleep. And I was like, holy shit. It was like 3:34 in the morning where he was in Dallas or whatever. So that's the advice that I would give that was given that I think is like number one is wake up every single day with the goal in mind of being more useful and less wrong. I still have his text message that says that. So one day I'll frame it. And then the worst advice that I've ever been is play it safe.
Yeah, that's great.
Play it safe.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, man. Like people, you know, because here's what happens is like when somebody tells you to play it safe on something that you have been dreaming of, something that you want so bad, right? Like, I don't know, man. I would play it safe. Like, don't go all in. If it's something that feels good inside, if it's something that you've vetted out, if it's something that you truly have done your research on, that you know is the best thing for you to do it in your life, right? And the person tells you play it safe, you have to imagine, like, you have to look at where that person's coming from, right? Where that person, for me, that was the worst advice was to play it safe because, you know, playing it safe never built anyone to be great, right? And people I've lost a lot. Like I've invested in the wrong projects, right?
Mm-hmm.
I've invested in the wrong projects because I didn't play it safe and I lost. But guess what? I still learned from that, right? So I gained. Yeah, I lost money, but I still gained because I didn't play it safe, and it got me to where I am today, right? And so now, me not playing it safe in the past, where I invested in a company I shouldn't have, and I lost I lost a shit ton of money. Now I know what to look for in future opportunities, right? Mm-hmm. It took me that lesson to get to where I'm at today and actually learn. Next time somebody comes around and tries to convince me to invest in their company, or the opposite of that is me trying to convince someone else to invest in my company, I've learned from somebody screw me over in the past for a lot of money, how they carry themselves. And I tell myself, like, now with my investors, like, don't carry yourself that way. Be completely transparent, right? Be completely out of your way transparent so that they continue to support you in every way possibly, and there's never a misunderstanding. So that's the worst advice that anyone has ever given me, is just to play it safe.
Awesome.
Sweet. All right. What's the best purchase you've ever made that was $100 or less?
Oh my God. Wow. That's bucks or less, $100 or less. I would say my first cell phone.
Awesome.
My first cell phone. Yeah. I would say my first cell phone because it connected me, right? It allowed me to make those calls that got me to building a business back then. It connected me to people. It allowed me to feel good about myself and being able to give some of my contact info for them to reach out. Even when I was living in my car, like, you know what I mean? Like, imagine not been able to contact anybody at any time. Like, man, like, it would have been worse for me. Like, you know what I mean? Not to have a device or something that I can use to connect with someone or call for a job interview. So that was the best money I've ever spent.
Wish phones were so that cheap, but not anymore. So last one.
Phones back then were not. Yeah. The phones back then were just not like anywhere near what they are today. It was just like a little simple, or the little like they call them throwaways now, like the little Nokia things that you open up, like those kind of phones. Yeah.
All right, last one. So what would you put on a billboard? Like, what message would you put for the whole world to see?
Follow your intuition.
That was quick.
Yeah, like that. That's how you know it was It's good because it's like right off your tongue.
Yep. Follow your intuition. It's never wrong. Never, ever, ever, ever wrong. Ever.
Wow.
People
Like
just
that-
have
yeah.
people have a hard time. People have a hard time tapping into their intuition because doubt kicks in, right? When doubt kicks in, your intuition just goes out the window, right? Fear or doubt. But when you're fully aligned and you're confident, your intuition will always speak to you and you will always react to it and you will always do the right thing. Always. Because that's what the universe is talking to you and telling you whether something is right or wrong. You know,
That's
think
amazing.
about the time. Think about the times. Have you guys ever done something you're not supposed to? Have you ever gotten in trouble with your parents?
Yeah.
Everyone has. Okay, so think about the times you've gotten in trouble with your parents or have done something that you weren't supposed to. Right up to that point where you did that, you had a feeling inside. You knew something was up. You knew something was wrong. You knew you shouldn't have done this. That was your intuition talking to you and letting you know, like, dude, like, no, like, let's not fucking do this. Like, we're gonna get in trouble. Like, but what happens is like your mind kicks in and takes over, and you still do it anyway, right? So that was the biggest thing I would put in a billboard is follow your intuition, and it will never be wrong.